What helped you drink less alcohol in your life? I needed to lose weight. I changed my diet and lost some, but I plateaued. I wasn't willing to eat less, so something else had to go. I used to have 2-3 drinks at home 3-4 nights a week, and maybe a little more if I went out. Now I don't drink at home unless it's a special occasion. I drink maybe 2-3 drinks a week now. I switched from beer vodka soda to LaCroix. It made a good, calorie-free option for me. I realized I felt better in the mornings more too. I never felt super hungover or anything, but once I got several evenings of not drinking under my belt, I realized how better rested I felt. Hit the back of my head super hard one day, not cause drunk. I have been struggling for years with regular excessive consumption and wanted to quit. But then when I hit my head, the thought of drinking turned my stomach for months. That was almost 3 years ago. I've had a few drinks occasionally with my wife since then, but it's like night and day. I used to live for this stuff, now I don't really like it. The head injury sucked hella bad. I was depressed and more or less in pain constantly for months. Probably worth it though. I think I was drinking my way to an early grave. Surprisingly, stronger alcohol. I always got 80 proof vodka because it was cheap and got the job done and made excellent screwdrivers. Well, one day my local store was out of my normal 80 proof, but they did have 100 proof of the same brand, so I got that instead. Made my normal screwdriver, then proceeded to get absolutely trashed. Normally I have about 4 over the course of a night every weekend. I only needed 1 that night, actually more like I only needed 1 for the whole month. It wasn't the hangover that did it for me, it was more being that drunk that quickly. My husband beginning his sobriety journey after basically turning into a full-blown alcoholic during COVID. He's got 3 years under his belt, and while he's doing well, it is definitely still a struggle some days. So I don't keep alcohol in the house, and only drink when I'm out with friends. If he and I go out to eat or are on vacation, sometimes he doesn't care if I have a glass or 2 of wine, sometimes he asks me not to if I don't mind. I used to have at least 2 glasses of wine and more. The thought of doing that now is so unappealing. Originally, the sole reason was infertility. I wanted to instill and to increase healthy habits in hopes it would help my husband and I conceive. But since I've stopped altogether in July this year, I now notice I've become the cheapest date ever. Half a glass of wine and I'm done for. Any more than that and I feel absolutely terrible the rest of the evening. These days, I'm really unmotivated to drink due to these effects. To think, this time last year, it was one of my favorite wind-down coping methods. Lol. Naturally getting older and more mature. I'm in my late 30s and still enjoy my cocktails, but I don't have the desire to drink like I used to. Now I typically have 2 when out to dinner and I rarely drink at home. Most is immaturity, as I mentioned, which naturally changed my relationship with it, but also, it's become more expensive. It's ridiculous that an average drink is $14, $16, major city prices, and even house wine is getting up there. And if I overdrink by 1, I feel like crap for almost 2 days. Not worth it. Having kids. I faced my alcoholism, more or less willingly, 3 months before my daughter was born. Now, when I do decide to drink, I create a very controlled environment and limit myself to 5 to 6 shots worth over a weekend night when my kids are at their mother's house. On top of that, I can't get up with the kids if I'm hungover. Worked wonders for my patience and typical mood, and I need a lot less of anything to get a buzz going. Makes me wish I never started drinking heavily, but the past is past. Waiting till 27 to start drinking socially. It catches up pretty quickly and you get a great learning environment to see what happens to others as a result. I think of drinking like a tunnel vision. It narrows consciousness and allows people to live in the moment. With no thoughts about past, or future, just unfiltered desire. Sadly, the real people are the ones who get emotional when they are drunk. It's like a wall. The real problem is when that wall is pierced and the drinking continues. My BF really needed to stop altogether. I was more moderate but still more than what's healthy. He wanted to stop, so I said let's do it together. It was hard for him, pretty easy for me. I'll have an occasional cocktail out or a wine at a get together, but most weeks and months I don't drink. I started using that time before bed to develop a skincare routine that I would have never stuck to drinking at night. It's the little ritual and it makes me feel fancy, and I just don't miss drinking. Not wanting to drink alcohol, I have yet to actually have a drink on purpose minus a very occasional sip from a parent's wine glass. Not only was I disgusted by the taste, but after seeing what alcohol, and other drugs for that matter, turn people into, either in the short or long term, I decided I'm not interested in putting myself in a state where I may not be able to fully control the actions I take. I just can't think of a reason I'd ever want to drink or use other drugs. I don't drink, but a few things have prevented me from starting. First is I am type 1 diabetic and it's not recommended that you drink. Second, my dad was a very bad alcoholic. 9-10 years sober, I saw what it did and never wanted it to happen to me. Finally, when I was in high school, my parents made me go see my uncle alcoholic the day after he got hit by a vehicle while he was wandering pedestrian on a major highway. Plus I like to have my mental facilities with me. I became sick of it. It's depressing and gives you a big gut, it causes cancer and costs a fair amount of money. I am free now, but really I should have quit when I turned 30. It was fun during the early stages of life, I can't deny it, but it also caused me so much trouble and worry, and most of all had a real negative effect on my physical conditioning. I could have achieved so much more without it. Really just another drug that has no real benefit to it. I just naturally started drinking less when I had more responsibilities. Can't function at work if I'm hungover. There are bills that need to be paid so I can afford it. If I got an impaired charge, I would be screwed. I'm a nurse and I've seen the sad results of people that drank themselves to death's door. The biggest reason was my youngest daughter became an alcoholic and I had to go absolutely alcohol free. She's been dry 3 years and I'm so proud of her. Honestly, CBD. After experiencing how good and overall less anxious depressed I was feeling, the alcohol just made it worse by self-medicating with it instead. I no longer had any desire to drink other than maybe some wine or something every once in a blue moon in moderation. Once you realize how much it sucks waking up dehydrated, in pain and sometimes vomiting, it becomes clear pretty quick that you will gladly take an alternative any day of the week. Had a shitty hangover for the second or third time in a month or two. So I spent another day in bed to cope with the hangover. Decided to attend an 8 a.m. meeting to see what it was all about and get a jump on dry January early last December. Started getting mild withdrawal symptoms and realized I was addicted and couldn't control it and wasn't going to let some drink control me, so I never drank again. It fucking sucked, but so worth it to quit. I was convinced I had anxiety issues until I read that alcohol creates anxiety. It's hard to associate the two because the anxiety isn't present when you're drinking and having fun, and when you use the alcohol as a crutch, it's a recipe for disaster. Constantly trying to self-medicate yourself from the anxiety you're having by having another drink. Take alcohol out of the equation for some time and all of a sudden life's a little less overwhelming. Soda water, mushroom, distraction, meditation, connecting with my friends, family and emotions in different ways, therapy. Not exactly an alcoholic, but I do struggle to deal with my emotions, so when depressed I can lean into drinking more than I want to. Also be around people who don't drink or rarely do. Play sports or volunteer. I think often I drink when lonely, and being around community that has a common goal is better than drinking. Hope this helps. Went to a friend's 21st birthday. I was 20 and got drunk. Woke up the next morning half naked in her bed with her and no recollection of most of the previous night. She claims nothing happened, but I always felt otherwise. We aren't really friends anymore, haven't seen each other in over a decade, and it's because of that night, at least on my end. I hate losing a friend that way, and I hate not knowing for sure. I haven't touched alcohol since. When I was 18 I got so drunk just thinking about drinking made me sick. Was sober for a whole year. Same thing happened a decade later. Although I can think about drinking without getting sick now. I still enjoy having a beer or wine, but I stop at 1 or 2 and don't have a drop for months at a time. I will describe myself as an alcoholic. Started drinking at 15 and worked at bars, and drinking was a huge part of my social life until about 30. Hit rock bottom. Had a huge fight with my husband that was uncalled for. Scared the doggo, who I love more than myself. Went sober for a while. Now will enjoy a cocktail here or there after discussing with my husband if I was ready to drink again, but if I'm stressed or my mental health isn't in tip-top shape, no alcohol again. I am an asshole when I'm drunk, and so I shouldn't be drunk, because being an asshole isn't okay. Let me preface with saying, I love drinking with friends and I find beer so tasty. But once I prioritized working out and keeping track of my calories, it basically started competing with my health goals. And I worked too damn hard to let alcohol be a detriment. Now I have a pretty healthy relationship with alcohol, and I think it enhances my life in the right way without affecting my life goals. Alcohol poisoning that almost killed me, and the pain of my gallbladder finally exploding from alcohol consumption. Got surgery. They nicked an artery. Bled for 10 hours. Was legally dead 1 minute. Lol. Seeing my dad and being upset I had to get another surgery, and while they moved me they accidentally ripped a 12-inch gash on my previous incision. I still have nightmares. So that deterred me taking running more seriously. Once I started really pushing myself, every night was a question of, do I want to crush this workout tomorrow or have a few beers and guarantee that I'll be going into it well below 100. I love running fast more than I love beer, so it went from being a conscious choice to skip beer to a conscious choice to have one. I average less than 3 a week now. Burn the ships metaphorically. Dump out all liquor bottles, give away wine bottles, dump out all beer. Get a refrigerator for the garage. When an event rolls around and you buy some beer or whatever, keep it in the garage. Those extra few steps help to separate an intentional decision to have a drink from an impulse. TLDR: keep all alcohol out of the house, put it in garage. It just doesn't give the same fun feeling anymore for me. I used to drink crazy heavy, talking like a fifth of Everclear a day. Now 4 tall boys will be plenty for me. I am a very functional alcoholic though. Without alcohol I never would have gotten the chance to know love, and it even led to me getting some promotions in life, as strange as it sounds. I used to drink heavily every day. I looked in the mirror and saw how bloated I'd become over the years, and I would always stuff myself after drinking. I gained a shitload of weight to the point that the slightest physical activity made me exhausted. I still drink, but not nearly as much. Sometimes just looking at your current self might cause certain changes,